Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Investor Podcast. We're back in it. We're not back in it. We're back in it. I mean, between the holidays and just, I don't know, sometimes it takes me a minute to jumpstart back into something like this. And then I go back out of it. And you know what? One of the things in 2026 is I am with my way of being. And I'm going to talk to you about that today. Also, I'm going to sort of add on and advance a little bit the conversation that we had last week with regards to you doing goals a different way. Because if you know how to pull energy down from the universal field and then implement it in the 3D in a clean, seamless way, cross that bridge, then you will then do everything different in 2026 as a function of who you are rather than the way that you did it before, which also represents who you were. Because the way you did it before is just the reinforcement of who you were. And sometimes this gets really challenging because sometimes the way we used to do things is successful. It's even fun to a certain degree. But is it a mismatch on that bigger version of you, that legacy version that you want to be in the world? Because that's who we're speaking to here in the Spiritual Investor. That's who we are rolling out into, or taking our daily life and we're pushing it out, if you will, into that. And so how many things and parts of you are, from a daily basis, connected to that bigger version versus how many of those things are you just kind of doing and you feel like, well, I'll get rid of this eventually, or however you feel about it. So what I'm going to do here is a little bit different. I'm going to go through and I'm going to give you 10 ways where I think that you can pull down the energy from the universe and really start to use it in the 3D world. And hopefully this conversation will take you further into your goals. I like to talk about goals, not even from the perspective of goals, because I don't actually have goals. And I talked a little bit about this before, like I do and I don't, because really, ultimately, it's just I am managing my energy in a way that is getting me out there to be more available, more of a conduit um, in the world for other people. And so that already being the goal, then the other things are just answering to that goal. So the way I want to kind of start this is everything happens from a state of being. Whatever that state of being is that you're holding now is simply the pushing out of that state of being is what you're seeing in the 3D world. Now, the moment that you think you know what I'm talking about, or the moment that you think you know your state of being, then it becomes an identity. And when it becomes an identity, then it becomes a characteristic that's describable by the 3D world. I can hardly say that. And then it becomes something that is fixed again. So it's like the moment that you try and understand your state of being and you're not curious about it anymore, then that state of being becomes fixed. That's the design. That's what it's supposed to be. And then the fixing of that is the causation that would cause you to be able to reflect on that. And the greater your awareness is, the more you're going to be the observer to reflect back on it. When you cease to become the observer, then you become merged with that fixation, which could be the identity, a role almost, if you will. And then you're merged with that and you're simply acting that out. Now, we've talked about before, kind of, there's always like, there's a place where you are establishing yourself in the world in relation to your desires and what you want. Typically, you are looking for what you want from a place of what you already have or don't have, because you have been taught to build and design based on that. What oftentimes people don't realize is that that's sort of, you've already lost the race. It's changing that beginning place in order to be, and a lot of people describe this as keeping the end in mind. In order to be that, is actually what causes you to be curious. And that's what causes you to reach. And the moment you do that, that gets you out of that fixed state of being. Now, the way that you do that, so that's the first thing. The second thing I'm going to say is that the way that you do that is a state of curiosity. The moment that someone tells you something and you in your mind go, I know that, or that's related to me, or I have a story that's similar to that. You see this all the time with people around you who are, they're just waiting until you stop talking so that they can talk. Well, they're not really with you in that moment. And shame on them, because you have a lot to share with the world. And so they're not actually getting access to you. And that's the thing. We're just determining what is our access to everything. That's all that's really happening around us, because everything is all here, including all of the money you want, and you're determining the access. And that's part of what you want to do in 2026 is you want to open yourself up to more of those things that you are desiring. Okay, so the curiosity is at the same time the pulling in of something that is new. And you can tell when something is new versus not new. And maybe not always, but we're not looking for always or perfect or anything like that, because that actually doesn't even exist in the universal field. One moment it may be perfect, then the next moment it's not perfect. There's no comparison. It just is whatever it is in the moment. And then it becomes the choice of what you want to do with it. And then boom, you take it back into the 3D world. So you're getting your access beyond when you're curious. And by the way, for everyone who's thinking about, oh my gosh, AI, and it's taking over people's jobs, and I mean, it's really helping people, but some people believe it's kind of taking things over. Like, your ability to be curious and look beyond is also your greatest safety in the new world. So this is something that you likely need to practice your way into, though, because you were taught as a stand in line, behave type of human being, which, okay, that's great. That worked for that world. Okay. So the third thing is drop your contract with money. And what I really mean by that is drop your energetic contract with money. Money is ones and zeros. We did a podcast, Courtney and I recorded it over, and we published it on Christmas Day, and where we talked about money as marshmallows, and that's a really great episode if you want to go back and watch that. But what works with me with money, and ties into this whole money as ones and zeros concept, is that I know that the value that I produce in the world, and that's basically just an energetic exchange, my energy for some type of abundance, is not directly related to the money that comes into my life. It is related on a global energetic level to whatever type of abundance I choose. Now, I may choose just to feel really at ease. I may do, I could say, okay, this podcast is just my favorite thing to do. Well, that's a form of abundance. I could say, this podcast allows me to connect with people. Great. I could say this podcast allows me to travel, which it does. All of these are truths, right? I mean, right now we're talking to a new podcast production manager because now this podcast is ranked in the top 2% in the world. And we're like, well, how do we get this out to more people? Is there something that we're not seeing? So then I go back into one of the previous steps I gave you, which is curiosity. I go back into the universal field of energy, and then I look around, and then I'll pull that down and go back out. So there's not a direct relationship. What this does is it allows me to have fun in the process of calling in money. And it allows me to be fully at ease because I'm not thinking about it. I mean, it's surprising how little I actually think about money, and how sure I am that I am energetically connected to whatever money I want and have access to any money that I want. That is actually part of it. And that is what allows me to not think about it so much, because once you know something is already yours, you don't think about it. You think about it when you're in lack and you think you need to do something to get it, or you're in need. The next thing I want to talk about is matching energies and calling in support. So I think that a big part of our success in 2026 and beyond is really the collaboration and co-creation. And so I love doing things in teams. I love doing things in relationships. I love doing things, you know, even when I was show jumping with my horse and I felt like it was like a hand in glove. We were all together. I like the merging of energies. And so for us right now, inside the Spiritual Investor, we have several new projects going on. One of them is I'm writing a book. And so, you know, I have a team set up for that. And then another thing is we have a private event coming up later this year, which we haven't really even started talking about yet, but I will. And right now we're in the middle of, we've got a little mini open enrollment period here for our Spiritual Investor Mastermind, which starts on February 3rd. We're going to give fewer masterminds in 2026. And you know what? This is what's so funny. They're the most successful they've ever been. They are always full. In fact, this last one was over full because we let a few more people in. They get more and more powerful. This one that's coming up has some high level entrepreneurs that have really, really done an incredible job in the space of branding and podcasting and all that. So they're going to be in there. This next mastermind, the next one is always our most powerful one. However, we have new stuff. And so I have noticed that I have this tendency in the past to, I'll go buy new clothes and then I'll never get rid of old clothes. And then the closet becomes like too stuffed and I can't tell what I have. Well, I can't allow that to happen in the company. So the masterminds are going to be offered less often. So that's something that I feel strongly about. And that's something that I'm excited to because it allows a space for other things. And I also don't know who am I going to be and what am I going to be doing in 4 months. And so my goal, as I said at the beginning, is to always be an open conduit. So it's keeping my life in kind of a flexible form to be able to do that. So if you want to get in the mastermind, definitely let us know. And if it's beyond this and you want to get into a future mastermind, we're going to start actually filling those up ahead of time. So you'll be able to get in. And then what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and give you a start date that's a little bit further out. Okay. So, I love the design of being able to help people in the way that I'm helping and to be able to run a business like this. And I now have a pretty robust team that I've been building I've been doing this 8 years. The podcast I've been doing for 5 years, but most of the team has been with me for several years as well. And it is just mind-blowingly powerful what you can do in a collaborative way with an incredible team. And I think that we have in the past perhaps seen things as something that we all need to do on our own. But what I really would love to invite you to see is that you're not doing something on your own when you are collaborating and working with someone else. And I'm saying this now because this is also what I'm doing because I'm bringing someone new into the team who is going to be a big vision holder, just like me. And there's going to be very much a symbiotic type of thing going there. And it's going to bring a sense of ease to me, but it's also going to be this invisible hand that is drawing us and expanding us up because it's going to allow me to put my energy focused on the book and things like that. But also she went through the mastermind and was just absolutely blown away. And then came to me and was like, I don't know what you're doing here, but Jesus Christ, like this needs to be out there. So that's how this whole started. So it's like, when you are open to these collaborations and you are willing to, in my case, I'm calling it letting go, magic is actually there waiting for you. It's just that you have to design your own access point. Sometimes people call this trust. I don't know that I actually call it trust, and maybe I'm just like being a little bit resistant of that word because sometimes these words kind of get a little spiritually cliche and trust the universe and blah blah blah. Like, what the fuck does that mean, right? It's because some people that's do nothing. I think for me, it's like I'm starting to feel my own merging with certain people around me as one. And for me, it's very akin to this concept of home, where when I have a strong internal home, then I can merge more fully with these other people. And once they become like, I feel like they're me, then there's no such thing as trusting or not trusting anymore. It's just like, it's not even a conversation. It's like, am I going to go to sleep every night? Yeah, I'm going to sleep every night. That's the idea. It's not like I need to think about that, right? So the next one is, there is a deeper truth within you that I think in the past you might have questioned a little bit, but I think that you are in a position now where you're going to start allowing yourself to let that guide you a little bit more. I will say that's one of the advantages of the mastermind is that you basically go in there as a way of, you are someone else for 12 weeks. So you're supported and practiced and sort of held in a almost like a lingering space, that you get to build the new version of you and see yourself. And that's why the results are profound, because you're actually building a new self and you're observing yourself at the same time. And by the time that you're done, you're sort of blinking and looking back going, wow, is this me? And I like me, right? So, imagine being able to do that with money. Um, it also creates a space and a foundation of being safe and calm. I really didn't realize how much safety goes into everything. I've had this thing where, since I was a child, I have been trying to prove to the world that I'm not weak. And, as a child growing up the way that I did, and it's all fine. So when I say this, please know I'm totally great with all this, but I grew up in it was violent. My mom left, my dad left. It's like all this stuff, right? The stuff that you kind of like, you're like, oh God, you see this in the movies. Well, also I had a lot of wonderful people that came in and did create a safe space. But the underlying foundation when your parents aren't there, I would say, at least for me, is kind of this, it's not really safe because, you know, they're not watching over me. All these other people are, which is great. But so I became strong, and then that was my survival, was not being seen as weak. And then as an adult, I saw this coming up in relationships and things like that, where I even saw it when I started this company, and I was hiding, and I was trying to like, okay, let me try and look a certain way. Well, I dropped that years ago. And this podcast is one of the things that helped me drop that, because I was like, I made a commitment to this podcast to come to it and say, I'm just me, and there's no filter, So, um, that practice of that and the self-expression that this podcast has allowed me, that's again another example of the indirect abundance of it. Um, but when you are in a state of safe and calm, you're more likely to experiment in that new version of you. And that leads you to this element of vulnerability. And I believe it's within the space of vulnerability that you actually are discovering the new you. Um, I just had a guy who stopped by here. He does some contract work around here, and he's like, kind of, he's become a friend as well. And uh, he was switching the light switch out, and he started crying, and he's like, I can't believe I'm crying. I can't believe, and he started talking about his life and how disappointed he was in himself. And he's like, I cried all the way over here. I know that you could help me, but I don't even want to ask you, it's just like, but within that space, he was finding something new. But, you know, we can't actually do that if we're also trying to apologize, and we're trying to like, not be that. And for me, it would be not look weak and all that. So can you see how I have opened myself up completely? And, it's showing up in all areas of my life, relationship wise, health wise, uh, financially. I mean, our company did the best it's ever done this last year. All of it is showing up. But it's no accident that I'm also so much more deeply connected and vulnerable than I've ever been. And I'll say more about that as we go along here, because I think it's really important to keep bringing this back into the space. But I want to get through these 10 things. So, and I think I'm on number 6 or 7. So something that I want to say with regards to pulling the energy down is stop expecting it to be comfortable. And if it's comfortable, it might actually just be you repeating the comfortable version of you. Now, you've probably heard some version of this before, but if you really, really, really are willing to let go of, yeah, I know that, it's not good to be comfortable, then what you'll see is all that we're really talking about is when you're comfortable, it is either coming from it's likely chewed gum, which is repeated. And it is either coming from silence and you've solved something and you've gotten something that you wanted, or it's coming from stillness. Stillness would be the equivalent of silence, only it's internal, it's on the inside. Stillness is a well that is unlimited. And what I found for myself is that I used to get emotionally strung out because of what was going on outside. And then I would try and find silence, like go to the beach or go hike or meditate or whatever. But that's all temporary. What I started doing was practicing stillness in replacement of getting emotionally strung out. And I think that's when I had the biggest switch that I've had. Because now I can choose it. And I can choose it under any circumstance. When you can do that, I think that's when your hair gets blown back in life. Because when you can do that and you can feel yourself starting to need something or drop into trauma or get upset about something, then that being as wonderful and luscious and precious as it feels, when you have known that and you know that, then you don't mind choosing it. It's not like a timeout in the corner where you're like, oh, I just have to suffer through it. And then what happens is, sorry, I have like a hair or something. So then what happens is you get to go out and be whoever the fuck you want in life, because you're not so worried about being thrown off, or you can be unapologetic in a way that you never have been before without being loud and audacious. When I say whoever the fuck you want, you don't want to be more ego. You want to be more valuable. You want to be more gotten. You want to be able to see people. You want all of that. And you want money, and you want abundance, and you want love. You are the one who loves the hardest and laughs the hardest and wants to literally leave this earth in just a dusty piled mess, because you want that adventure. You want it all. You don't actually want to be comfortable. The only time you want to be comfortable is when you feel like it's gotten to be too much. But I'm telling you, when you know how to pull energy down and then use it in the 3D world, and that becomes your main process, then the 3D world is no longer using you, including taking you emotionally down the river. So what this allows you to do as well is receive more, and that state of allowing. Why? Because you're not so defensive about the mirror. Like, your impact in the world is creating a mirror that comes back to you. You want to feel and be in unconditional love. Well, you would be a full conduit, and you would be feeling someone when they are gotten or seen. That's the greatest feeling alive, is when someone feels seen and you know that they feel seen. God, it's not even about you. Like, I don't even feel like I'm there. And I don't feel like there's any moment that needs to come after, or that any moment came before. And so then I go, wow, that is a form of stillness. that is what I want to create more in my life, because not only is that enjoyable for me, but it is uber powerful in the world. And people are drawn into that because that's what people are really looking for. They want to see themselves. They want to expand through you. They want it. This is this co-creation collaboration thing I'm talking about. And so when you're not defensive about the mirror, you could be vulnerable, and then you could see what the mirror shows you. You're like, oh God, let me just say this, let me say that, and then it comes back to you, and you're like, okay. Also, something that's been helpful for me is to drop the significance of it, meaning that, does it always have to be about me? Significance is a version of ego as well. Let me make something so important. It's also in a form of procrastination and avoidance. Let me make something so important that it's just going to literally like stall me from doing everything else in life. And, but I can justify it. And a lot of people justify it by their past, which is recreating the past. So, going back to this safety thing though, your environment, making it more safe around you is helpful, although the safety is within you. I will say that the practice of becoming this bigger version of us, it is helpful with that. And I am so grateful for all the support that I have around me that allows me. I have people around me where I can show up as the most arrogant asshole you've ever seen. In fact, I was telling one of these people the other day, I was like, I can be an asshole. And I was giving her examples. And this was a text message, and I noticed she didn't mention it. And then I brought it up later. I'm like, did you see what I sent you? Don't you know that I can be an asshole? And she goes, it was like you weren't even telling me anything new. She goes, you're not an asshole. You're a human being. And I know you're a human being. So we are who we are. And I can guarantee you that there is more kindness underneath you than there is judgment, arrogance, all of that stuff. And I do also believe that if you're listening to this, you're on the tail fringes of the bell curve anyways. You're not in that thick middle of the rest of the world anyways. So this being vulnerable to then become stronger is very similar to something else that I've gone through, which is you have to become unsafe to be safe. And then it's very similar to you have to be dependent to be independent. I've had to allow myself to be dependent in relationships in order to learn independence and be okay with that. Otherwise, I'm just over here in my zone of fictitiously creating comfort, which feels like safety, which is fake. So, the more that we can orchestrate internally exactly what we're trying to build externally, the less likely it is that the world is going to be able to jerk the rug out from underneath us. So for me, there was a concept that was missing, this concept of home, internal home. I have very much built that and found that now, although that's just an ongoing process. And now, like I said, I can access it anytime. I want to draw in, though, that, we talk about this concept of money neutrality. You feel very much at home when you're in money neutrality. And it's not that you don't care, it's that you don't need to put your caring on it because it's already working. And so you don't need to care because it's already working. It's kind of strange. It's like, it's similar to knowing that a plant is already growing. Like you don't need to watch it. But if you were to plant the seed and then check it every day, like your investing account, and need to know all the things about it, and then question what you've done and then pull the seed out of the ground and then go plant it somewhere else, because this is what people do. They sell their stocks and then they start over, and or the crypto, and they're just waiting for the next big thing. Like, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, if you look at what, and then there are a lot of people out there that like to see 3D evidence. So, I mean, if you look at really what's happened between 2022 and 2025, wealth has grown. Household wealth in the U.S. has grown by 26% in 3 years. Now, of that household growth of 26%, 73% of that is attributed to stocks. And so while you're seeing all these people out there that are doing, like, these businesses and all types of different, investments, I'm going to bring you back to building foundational legacy wealth and gaining your own financial knowledge that you're able to combine with your intuition is one of the most important things that you can do in 2026, because that is what is giving you freedom. If you don't have freedom with money, then you're dependent on the external world, and the rug could be jerked out from under you. Now, you don't have to have all the money that you need right now. You could be on a path to that, and you could be feeling that momentum, which is very similar, that feeling, to having been seen. When someone truly gets finally what you're trying to say to them and what you're talking about, it's just a relief, aha, like at ease feeling. That momentum, which you will have in your journey with money, is as important as having all the money that you want in the account. So what I'm telling you is that all this work that we do with money is outside of time. And when you go outside of time, then you're able to do things in a way that surprise you, and that you're looking back on and going, wow, I can't believe I did all that in that amount of time. If you're feeling like everything in your life is going too slow or taking too much time, or you just can't get it all together, here's what's happening. You're stuck in the 3D, and that's it. And you can snap out of that in a moment. And don't worry, you can come back into it. But when you snap out of it, and it's more than just a feeling, you can be in the 3D and be in a yoga class and feeling great and still be in the 3D. True freedom means that no one actually has access to you. And when no one has access to you, what I mean is they can't take you down the river, then you don't show up in the world needing things. And when you don't show up needing things, you are available to everyone that you choose to give yourself access to, or them to you. So, wrapping this up, energy is outside of time when you're pulling it from the universal field and you're utilizing it, when you're taking it beyond a concept and a feeling. You are here as a conduit so that you can do this. And you're bringing it back into the 3D as a self-expression of you as an identity. So it's not that we've changed the rules of the game. It's always worked this way. It's just that we're finally actually learning how to play, and we're getting closer and closer to our only goal in life for all of us. I believe this will happen at some point in the future. We'll have this full understanding that the only goal is to expand into greater consciousness. And whatever we do along the way is just part of that journey. And we're using the things that we're doing along the way as acceleration points for that. All right. I'll see you here on the next episode, or I'll see you in the Mastermind. It's 12 weeks. We meet twice a week, and buckle your seatbelt. Go to thespiritualinvestor.com if you want to apply. All right. Thanks for listening.